What's up guys, welcome back. I have been putting in work the last few days trying to get all of the little things that we need to get dialed in on the car buttoned up, because I just want to see this thing up and running again. You know, I'm tired of it being down. So I got our radiator hose all fixed and back into place in the last video. If you guys missed it, I was going to I ordered a new radiator pipe to replace this one because it looked pretty janky. So I just wanted to get it replaced, and I ended up removing this upper radiator pipe to do that. And while I was messing with both of the radiator pipes, trying to figure out how I was going to get the new radiator pipe installed, I realized that the new radiator pipe that I had ordered off LMR that I showed you guys was actually much thinner in diameter than the pipe that we currently have on the car. And for whatever reason, I just decided to go against going down in diameter on the radiator hose. I don't know if it'll make a difference. I doubt that it will, but I was just like, we're already running a thicker radiator hose in diameter. Why would I change that up to a smaller one? So I ended up repainting, or I sanded down the radiator pipe, repainted it, and it actually turned out pretty good. And if you guys remember, I had to cut this hose here to get it off because everything was stuck. So I went to Advanced, picked up a new little section of radiator hose, cut that out to a 90 to fit our purpose, got that into place, and the radiator hose was good to go. And then I put our new thermostat in, our thermostat housing, installed it, got all that buttoned up. So that's good to go, it's all tight. I also made like 3 or 4 trips back and forth to the auto parts store trying to source the proper belt for the car. So that was a headache. I gave them the measurements, they gave me a belt that said it was, came back here, it was way too big. Brought it back, they gave me another belt, it was way too small. Brought it back, they gave me another belt and it was just barely too big, but the belt size under that one they didn't have in stock. So I ordered it, it should be here in a few days, and when we receive that, we'll be able to get the belt into place, and that will be a huge step in the right direction. Also, if you guys remember in the last video, we rerouted all of the wiring for the alternator, and I had mentioned that the starter cable was bunched up with that group of wires and I had to separate it and reroute it. Well, I ended up rerouting it again because it used to come out of this grommet where all of our harness comes out of, and it used to go around this side, and then it would come through the passenger side of the intake manifold and then go down and straight to the starter, and it worked that way. But now that we rerouted all of the wires for the alternator, I didn't want to have just the starter cable running down here. I thought it would just not look as clean as not having the starter cable there. So I decided to move the starter cable with this group of wires, but then I had to figure out a new way to route it because it was coming out of the grommet. I had separated it from this group of wires, and then I had it just going down, and you guys know the starter is down here. But the problem was that there was no real way to secure the starter cable, in a way that it wasn't touching either the transmission or the back of the head or running into the exhaust manifold. It was very difficult to get the starter cable to run from that grommet on the back of the engine to the starter without it resting up on something. There's not much things back there on the firewall that I could zip tie the cable to, and I really wasn't comfortable with that because I just didn't want it to get burned up and me having to replace it in the future. So I decided to revise the way that I routed the starter cable, and I ended up pulling it all back into the car through the grommet that we have there that all of the harness is coming through. Once I got it back into the car, I located the most ideal place to drill a hole, and I'll try to show you, but I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. So right here, you guys can see that there is a little grommet with the brown cable coming out of it. That is our starter cable. So I decided to drill a hole in that little flat part of the firewall right there, put a grommet, and now our starter cable goes straight from our fuse / relay panel that's right here behind the dash, comes out of that, goes through the firewall in that little grommet, and then it's just about a 12-inch section of cable going straight to our starter. And oh, you guys can see it right there. See it? It's brown cable. So yeah, it's not touching anything. It's not in the way of getting burnt up. I'm much more happy with how it's routed now. I still do want to get some heat wrap and wrap it up just to be extra safe. But yeah, that was a big thing on the list that I just wasn't happy with, because like I said, once we separated it from this group of wires, we kind of just had it running on the back of the engine, and it was resting on the transmission and touching the back of the heads and stuff, and that was no good. So I'm stoked that I was able to reroute it, and it turned out way better than I anticipated, so that's dope. Also got our wideband back in, and we got our throttle cable and bracket installed, which was a whole little project in itself, because it didn't really, or it fit the way that it was, but it was pushing. If you see how we have our fuel line running next to the fuel rail, the bracket for the throttle cable was actually pushing the fuel line up a whole bunch. So I ended up cutting a section out of the throttle cable bracket that we didn't need, and then I just reinforced it with a plate of sheet metal. And I don't know if I'll be able to show you guys, but you guys can see my welds in there. So I welded that guy all back up, and I ended up taking about an inch of material that we didn't need off the back side of that bracket, which gave us much more clearance. And now, you know, we're not pushing up against that fuel line how we were before. So throttle cable's in, wideband's in, that's sick. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't even gonna film this video for you guys, because I feel like all of these little things that I do behind the scene are just not really content worthy, you know, because it's just very small things, and they take me a good amount of time to do each small thing, but they have to get done. But I asked you guys in a previous video if all of the small things that I do behind the scenes is something you guys would be interested in, and a few of you said yes. So I decided to make this video and drop it, because I was just going to wait until, you know, I have everything buttoned up and we could do the first start on the car, but it might take another week or so, and I didn't want to postpone this video and leave you guys hanging without any content for like 2 weeks straight. So I wanted to get at least some type of video out there so you guys can, you know what's going on, and I don't leave you wondering where the heck I am. So I figured I would make this little update video. We have gotten quite a few things done to keep you guys up to speed, and then this will for sure be the last update video you guys get on Miss Parker's engine overhaul. The next video is going to be us firing this thing up for the first time. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video and get it out there for you guys to keep you in the loop and not have an absence of content. But with that being said, moving right along, you guys probably noticed that our new Holley dual sync distributor has been dropped into place, and I am stoked on that. So the next thing we need to do is get the distributor aligned. I went ahead and got the distributor plugged into the Terminator X main harness already, and I powered up the car. And if you guys take a look back here, you'll see that our cam and crank LEDs are on. So now what we're gonna do is turn our distributor housing counterclockwise until our crank LED turns off. So I don't know if you guys can see, because it's pretty bright out right now. Boom, crank light turned off. I don't know if you guys saw that on the camera. Let me zoom in a little bit, see if I can get a better shot of it. And now we're just gonna turn the distributor housing clockwise until the crank light turns back on. Boom, you guys saw that? So now if you take a look at our indicator on our rotor, it's kind of hard to get the camera angle back in there because the intake manifold is in the way, but it is perfectly in line with our crank sensor on the distributor housing. So we're good to go. We can get the distributor snugged up now, get the cap installed, and begin to get all of the wires routed. I'm gonna throw our little distributor hold down back into place. I'm just gonna snug it up. We ain't gonna go crazy on it, because odds are I'm gonna have to adjust this a little bit once we go to set the timing. So just snug it up to hold it into place. Good to go. Go ahead and get the distributor cap into place. Should, right there, it's fully seated. Get that that guy snugged up. Look at that. So good. Also, the weather feels absolutely lovely this morning. Like, it's just a nice cool breeze. There's not too much sun, the clouds are blocking it. It's just real nice. So let's keep it pushing and get the spark plug wires installed. Got these MSD superconductor wires. First time opening them up with you guys. Hell yeah. Sick. So on the distributor cap, I plugged it in onto the prong or stud that corresponds with where the pointer or the indicator was on the distributor rotor. So that's number one. And then on a Ford, Fox body, whatever, the distributor spins counterclockwise. So now that we have our number one plug into place, we are just going to continue with the firing order going around the distributor counterclockwise. So it'll be 1, 3, 7, 2, etc., etc., and we'll get all of the spark plug wires laid out one at a time. And just like that, within a few minutes in Florida, beautiful weather can turn into rainy weather. It's about to rain any minute now. It was actually already drizzling and then it stopped, so it's holding off just long enough for us to finish up this video. But I got all the spark plug wires plugged into their appropriate location on the distributor and then routed to their appropriate spark plug. And obviously I'm gonna have to go back through this and clean everything up and, you know, make them a little bit more uniform and neat, because right now it is a huge mess. But at least we got them routed to where they need to go. Also, I got these little heat shields on all of them, which we're reusing because we had those on the previous engine setup. So I'm stoked that we got to reuse that. And yeah, man, we're making some pretty good progress. I'm stoked. Like, look at this. It's looking like a whole damn engine again. Fired up. So really, at this point, all we're waiting for now, a serpentine belt. Once we get that in, I have to wire up the MSD box. Once the MSD box is wired up, the only thing we have to do is check systems, make sure, you know, we have no leaks and whatnot, and then attempt to fire up the car for the first time on the new engine setup. Well, we have to adjust some of the ignition parameters within the Holley software, and then we can attempt to fire up the engine for the first time on the new setup. And I mean, look at this thing, dude. Oh my goodness, I am so hyped. Like, I just want to hear this thing run again. It's been so long, and you know, she's on a whole nother level now. So I just really am very excited to get this thing all put back together and running, and then, you know, just comb through it and get everything super dialed, because fingers crossed that we don't have any issues once we get the car running. But we did just do a whole lot to the car, so if we did have a leak here or there, something that we needed to revise, I wouldn't be surprised or upset. You know, you'll have that on these big jobs, and this was definitely a big job. So yeah, man, we are almost there. We're getting close. We are very close. With all that being said, I think I'm gonna end this video here. Miss Parker is almost back up and running, so get stoked. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Be easy.